Hey everybody, welcome to the Pad Life Podcast. It is July 5th, 2024, and today we're going to be joined by Mr. Josh Latimer. Josh was a speaker at our recent Encapalooza. He did extremely well. He was very, very well received. We actually did a post-event survey, and we had about 15% of the attendees respond to the survey. It was pretty detailed, and Josh was, if not he was like tied with another speaker. Eric Sprague is the top two speakers. I'm sure you're familiar with Eric, right? Super Tech.
I've heard of Eric Sprague. Yes, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Really good guy. Yeah, Super Tech and does some other stuff. But anyway, Josh. One thing I love about Josh is that not only is he a great speaker and a great business person, but he's also multifaceted. So he started with a cleaning business, which we'll hear about here shortly. But then he's able to move on into other businesses. So he didn't just become like a coach or, some sort of advisor or anything like that. He actually started other successful businesses outside of the cleaning industry, including a software as a service with SimJim and more. So, Josh, tell us a little bit more about who you are, how you started in the service industry, and how you branched out to these other businesses.
Well, I do have 5 kids, and 2 goldfish and 2 dogs. So we stay very busy. Family's number one. I'm pretty much unemployable at this point. I think I would have to find a way to work for myself. Been married 22 years to my high school sweetheart. We started out in a trailer park, and I started with a window cleaning business, which is way less complicated than carpet cleaning, but similar in the sense that we clean dirty things for money. And really struggled, gradually figured some things out, had success there. I sold that to a small private equity. It sounds fancier than it is. Moved to Costa Rica for a couple of years, launched SimJim, also the founder of, some people have heard of Conquer. Started that when I was in Costa Rica with some programs helping other people So I've done a lot of different things. Today we have a commercial real estate in Dallas that has a video production studio that we mostly use for ourselves, and another new software company I'm working on. So it's been a mixed bag, but the heart and soul of what we do is working with local business owners. That's what we've done for 15 years. I've had a lot of pain and suffering. I joke that I have a bachelor's degree in pain and a master's degree in suffering. It's hard. I started my business during 2008, my cleaning business originally, kind of in that window we were already going. And it was tricky, and there's weird economic challenges now too, and a lot's changed, but I'm also excited for the future. So we can take it whatever way you want.
Yeah. Tell us about SimJim very quickly, because that's become very popular. I know you put a lot into that a few years ago, and it was, a kind of a labor of love, right? And now it's doing quite well. But I think a lot of people still really aren't that familiar with it, especially I think maybe some of the owner operators out there. So why don't you quickly tell us about SimJim?
SimJim originally, it's a software that does really insanely cool things with direct mail. And it wasn't going to be its own company. Originally, I was developing it as a tool to use for my own cleaning business. My cleaning business wasn't gigantic, but at the time it was pretty big. We were doing almost $200,000 a month cleaning windows just south of Flint, Michigan. And what I had figured out is that one of the best marketing levers for me at that time was I was sending personalized postcards to people, but they were very unique. There's a couple unique things about them. I would put a picture of the house on the front of the postcard and a real price, like an introductory foot in the door offer price on the back of the card. And these cards were like printing money for us, but it was a complete nightmare to scale that, right? So I was trying to build an application where I could use my phone, take a picture of a house, put a price, hit a button, and a card would go to that house. That's originally all that it did, and we're going to use it for ourselves. It just kind of evolved into a full-featured, whole awesome thing. And what it does today is it still does that, like I described, but it does all kinds of other automations. You can send, for example, gifts to your customers after the job's complete, like brownies or cookies or caramels, a thank you card. It can drip things out 6 months later, a year later. It can send letters and all kinds of different types of mail. But it can also send the neighbors of your customers a sequence of mail too, if you want it to. And so you can configure it lots of different ways. But It's awesome. It's really, really cool. You can waste money playing the game of direct mail if you don't, put your thinking cap on before you start doing it, because it costs a significant amount of money. But the upside of it is it's super professional. It's like effortless to do once it's automated, but you got to have your messaging right and some other things. But that company's grown a lot. It almost bankrupted me starting that business. It was very painful. I have some business partners and some people that really helped save the business. It crushes it now. It does very well. It's growing. Daniel Dixon is the guy that runs that. He's a co-owner and partner as well as the CEO of it now. So it's based out of Nashville. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of local businesses using it.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's used by a myriad of home services, correct? Not just exterior, correct? Interior as well. Yeah.
We have universities that use it, massage therapists that use it, chiropractors, dentist offices. I mean, it's very widely applicable. So there's a pretty big net. But it all started with a window cleaner trying to get a customer in a predictable way. I call it a lever, like a marketing lever. How can I spend $1 and make us exact amount back? That was
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you still work with a lot of cleaners directly, or at least speak with cleaners directly on a regular basis, I'm assuming, correct?
Oh, constantly.
Right. And service industry in general, whether it be HVAC, plumbing, what have you. What are you hearing about the economy today and how it's impacting the home service industry?
I hear a mixed bag of things. I think a lot of it is regional, but there's pain. I mean, the reality is there's pockets where everything's it's almost like a parallel universe. So if you're in like a really affluent area in Texas or in certain areas of the country, you're probably doing okay. But by and large, as far as I can tell, it's painful. And part of the reason is just the costs of everything has went through the roof. We just celebrated 4th of July with our family, and you go buy a pack of hot dogs or bacon and eggs and stuff. Everything just costs way more. And if you trust the government, well, I'm hoping you don't just trust the government. If you have a brain, but they say inflation's 6 or 8%, and it's just fake. It's not true. State Farm Insurance just threatened the whole state of California to leave the state completely unless they allow them to raise their homeowners insurance by 31% on residential homes, because the cost to rebuild a home has went up about 30% just in the last few years. Wood and nails, and so this is just crushing small business owners. It's totally fixable and it's navigatable, but like to the typical small owner operator, it can be really scary. And it's because they weren't priced correctly even before this happened. And now it's even worse now that this has happened. Plus some markets, the phone call volume is dropped a lot and they don't know what to do and they're panicking.
Right. So yeah, we're kind of entering what might be a fight or flight mode, right? For businesses. And, you really got to try to fight. And what would be some advice you'd give these smaller businesses, particularly the cleaning businesses? Because I'll say really quick that I look at the home service industry as sort of like a hierarchy where you have the HVAC and plumbing people at the top, because these are services where no matter what, people are going to call you, right? If your water heater goes out or your toilet's backed up, your air conditioning stops working, your heater, you're going to call somebody. You can't not do without it. But when it comes to window washing or carpet cleaning, that's kind of more of a discretionary spending, right? And I think that's where there's a little vulnerability for some of these people. So what are your thoughts on that?
I have so many thoughts. You can just cut me off if I start rambling.
No, go ahead.
The first thought is that this is a massive opportunity. And I'm not just some guy on the internet trying to be positive, motivational speaker guy. It's just a fact, okay? You got to understand that the big boys in all these industries, they get excited when things like this happen. And all the owner-operators panic when things like this happen. And we need to learn what's the difference between these mindsets. I remember right when COVID started, I called Tommy Mello because we've been friends for years. I don't talk to him a ton. I texted him yesterday to say happy 4th of July. And he was so excited, right? So people were literally panicking. Cleaning companies were freaking out during COVID. And he's like, oh, Josh, this is my Tommy Mello voice. He's like, unbelievable opportunity. I'm buying everything. Josh. And I get that you don't have $100 million like Tommy Mello and all that, but it's a mindset thing. So there is opportunity. Opportunity number one is to actually buy other companies that are panicking. because they have Google listings, they have assets, they have discounted equipment, they have customer lists that are really valuable. They're going to overreact and quit. They're going to fail. The other thing to recognize is that affluent people or higher end clients are less affected economically than everybody else. It's just the way that it is. And even during the year after COVID, people don't know this, but approximately 6,200 people a day became millionaires in the United States. And the reason I say that is it can feel really hopeless if your phone's not ringing and you don't know what to do and you don't have a business background and your family are entrepreneurs and like you don't know where to turn and you're just in a Facebook group but the reality is there is so much opportunity everywhere. Sometimes you just can't see it if you get stuck in this negative vortex. But there's opportunity everywhere. So you can buy other companies. You got to start marketing proactively instead of relying on reactive marketing. So a lot of really good technicians are 100% dependent on just the good-hearted nature of their clients for them to grow. And when you do really good work, you'll never starve, right? But that's not enough. You have to work harder now to get a client than maybe you did 12 or 18 months ago. And it's okay. If you're going to have a victim mindset about it and feel sorry for yourself, it's going to get worse. If you start thinking, all right, what skills do I need to learn? What concepts do I need to, open myself up to win in this market? Then you'll be okay. Most people are just going to blame the government or blame their market or blame some external factor instead of looking at themselves. And the people that make the most money are marketers first. They're they're technicians second. And that's the way it is. And people don't like it. And I know in carpet cleaning, people hate Stanley Steamer. They're the big company everybody likes to pick on because they do bad work and all this stuff. But Stanley Steamer does $400,000 a day in revenue. The average carpet cleaner does $326 a day in revenue. And I'm not saying do bad work like Stanley Steamer. I'm just saying there's lessons to be learned. Like, how did that even happen? How did a company scale like that? How can I market better? How can I be proactive instead of reactive? How do I have strategic joint venture partnerships with other service companies in my town? And how do I buy up the panicking competition to set myself up for when things bounce back?
Yeah, I think one of the points you made earlier, just a moment ago, here is the growth through acquisition. And I think not enough small businesses do that and take that approach. And that's frankly the approach that Tommy Mello, being a great example, you mentioned him earlier. And by the way, you and Tommy had a great interview about, I don't know, 8 months or so ago. It was around the holidays, the two of you. And I suggest people look that up. It was a conversation with you and Tommy Mello, and it was really awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was great. But growth through acquisition is something that we don't see enough of and hear enough about. But you see private equity doing it, right? Like that's how they start in every market, correct? They just buy the biggest player in that particular city or region, and then start buying up everybody else around them.
Well, you'll notice like the wealthier people, they make money with their brain, not their back. Mm-hmm. And like for me, I grew up in a blue collar family that all worked for, General Motors or a derivative company that supplied General Motors in Michigan. Everything's the auto industry. And these are good, amazing people. They work hard, but your brain gets trained. If you grew up poor or you grew up with not a lot to kind of look at or success to model, when you start your business, you bring into it a lower level mindset on accident. And you think the way to get out of things is just to work harder. You think the way to get out of things is to, complain or just kind of suffer and wait, right? But the people that are achieving the most, they know things other people don't know, and they can do things other people don't do. And if I meet a small business owner, like even at Encapsulooza, and I'm like, tell me about yourself. They'll say things like this, like, oh, I'm a carpet cleaner. If you want to be really successful, you need to not identify yourself as a carpet cleaner. You're an entrepreneur. You're a business owner. You're a job creator. You're a world changer. I mean, who you think you are is a huge thing that predicates success. And it might sound cheesy, but it's just absolutely a fact, right? And so how does that tie back to acquisitions? Well, most small companies, they don't even use words like acquisitions. You'll notice people like Tommy, they use words like capital. They don't talk about money. They talk about capital. Small companies talk about money. They're always trying to get money. How do I get $500? How do I pay the bills this week? How do I do this, right? Strategic thinking is like realizing you're an entrepreneur. You don't need like permission to go acquire a company. You're allowed to do it right now. And that might be a fancy word, but you can buy businesses for $0. Did you know that? I've helped 50 companies either buy or sell their own company. It's not that big of a deal. And there's tons of people that are getting older, boomers that are retiring. No one's to buy their company. They have nothing to do, or their wife is a nurse and makes a strong income, and they move states, but they have a $250,000, $300,000 business. They don't know how to even market it, how to sell it. You need to be marketing to your competitors for acquisition right now, even if you don't have any money. You should at least want the phone call and have a friendly working relationship with these people. And if you identify yourself as a carpet cleaner instead of an entrepreneur, maybe you don't even think that thought, right? And I don't know, it's kind of endless, because for a lot of people, carpet cleaning isn't the end all be all. Sometimes it's like their starter business and they want to do even something else past that, or they want to scale it to multi-states. And there's basically two camps. There's the big companies that make a freaking fortune, and then there's everybody else. There's very little in the middle. You want to go big or stay small, but not get stuck in the middle. It's kind of financial death, that 300,000 to 600,000 range in revenue, or maybe 400,000 to 700,000. It's cash flow purgatory. And it's hard, but it starts with an identity shift in who you are and the types of things you learn and think about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And again, I think acquisition is a great way to expand, great way to grow. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that, again, cleaners don't talk about enough or think about. Something else I think that is really lacking is the desire and the ability to sell for a lot of the owner-operators, right? When they're on a job, the ability to, or the desire to actually identify additional services that they can perform on site, whether it be, say they're there for a carpet job and talk about upholstery cleaning or tile and grout or what have you. And I think that's a real obstacle that needs to be addressed in this industry.
One of the reasons that happens for some people is because they want to go home. So like when you've worked a long day and then you see this other $500 thing you can upsell, you don't want to even upsell it, because now you have to do that thing, right? And so you want to have that day end. And so you kind of have one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, because most of your working hours are spent doing technician things. Subconsciously, you don't upsell as hard as you could have. Now, if you were up in an ivory tower and you had 1,000 technicians working for you and you're trying to maximize shareholder value for your company, you would easily implement a system where people absolutely have to upsell, right? And there'd be a grading system and KPIs and all that. But when you're the one doing everything, it's just like exhausting. So I think that's one thing. And it's also one of the reasons that upsell systems don't work that good for your employees too, is because they also want to go home. And the very same employee that's complaining he's not getting enough hours, that same guy will still not upsell because he wants to be done at 3 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock, right? It makes no logical sense. There's ways to get around that though. Number one is don't do the thing you're upselling on that same appointment. So this helped my company huge. Anybody in our company that upsold something, they didn't do it right then. We would only upsell things that were big enough to justify a totally different appointment. And then all of a sudden upsells exploded for us. Number two, we rewarded people not for doing the upsell, but for documenting the authentic needs of the client. So we used to tell people when we trained them, we hired you for your back, but can you throw your brain in for free? Can we have your brain too? And your eyeballs? Can we use your eyeballs? And we teach them that they were a professional recommender. And when they go do a job, their job is just like a doctor with a patient, is to identify all the different things. And they would document it and bring that back to the office. Then our sales team would follow up the next morning with the customer. Hey, Jimmy left a note. He mentioned there's a lot of mildew on your back deck. Is that something you're going to take care of yourself? I wouldn't feel right if I didn't at least call you before I close your file out. Do you want me to send the guys back out to take care of that for you? And so we would do the sales part over here. They would get rewarded just for using their eyeballs and documenting what we called future opportunities. And we just document it. And we made hundreds of thousands of dollars extra just from that. And it took away the weirdness of the technician trying to have to be a closer, because a lot of the really best technicians are terrible at selling and they feel really awkward doing it. So why make them do it? You didn't hire them to be a sales guy. So that's one way that you can get around it. But you're right. It's important, because if you have a $500,000 business and you just improve that one thing, by 15%, then that's like 75,000. Wait, that would be 15,100. Yeah, it'd be $75,000 in top line revenue for free, right? Just by making a tiny improvement to that, like your average ticket price or your frequency, things like that.
Absolutely. And don't you also, when you agree that you almost have an obligation to present opportunities, you know, where they need that particular service? If you're in the home, whether it be interior, exterior, and you see something that needs to be cleaned or needs to be repaired, whatever it might be, we really should highlight that to the customer.
100%. But the reason people don't feel like that, and the reason why a lot of people don't, is they feel bad, almost like they're a charity and the person felt bad for them and hired them to have mercy on them. That's how they view sales. They don't understand that the people giving you money, they're giving you money and saying thank you. Like, they're happy to trade the money in the pocket for the value that you provide them. One big struggle for me, because I grew up with not a lot of extra money, was paid me to clean their windows. It was like weird. Why would someone give me money to clean dirt off their glass and then immediately it would get dirty again? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
One of the reasons people have a hard time upselling is because they feel like selling is taking something from someone. They feel like it's like swindling them or like convincing them. And so they feel dirty selling. This is an epidemic level problem with small business owners. What they fail to understand is that taking someone's money in exchange for the value that you have is not only good, but it's very good, because all of us love to buy stuff. And for me, it was weird selling window cleaning because I never would buy window cleaning. I didn't understand why someone would ever give me money to squeegee dirt off a glass that immediately gets dirty, and then they give me money and I squeegee dirt off a glass. But I'm not them and they're not me. You know, some people spend $5,000 on a single golf club. Okay, like I wouldn't. But people do that. It's a thing, right? So you let the customer decide if they see the value in your services, but it's your job to expose them to all the possibilities of the things you could do to help them. Some people won't care. Some people do care. You know, some people are OCD with their carpet. They would get their carpets cleaned every 2 months, but you don't even have that as an offering. You don't make it a thing, right? People would clean way more often than you give them credit for, but you do the service and just hope they call you again in the future. All these are huge mistakes that cost you money for no reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, it's the idea of like you're imposing on the customer and you're afraid to ask for extra money, or it's a mindset. 100%. I agree on that.
Yep.
If you were starting out today in 2024 and starting a service business, what would you pursue? What type of business? Would you go after pressure washing, window washing? Maybe it doesn't even matter. But if you were starting today, what would be your path?
That's tricky.
It's an off-the-wall question. I'm sorry. I know.
No, it's okay. It's a really good question. I think I would, because I like to build and sell things, I would probably take a look at either pest control or fertilization. Those are interesting industries because they have a low ticket reoccurring revenue model, which is interesting. Or if I did get into something like carpet cleaning, I would try to do it on a subscription basis. Like one opportunity right now, if you do want to exit your company someday, is to move into like a subscription type business model, because you can sell it for more money at the end when you want to get out. So I think that's interesting. And then, but the other thing is like the problem with window cleaning was that the ticket price isn't that high, right? So I would want to be thinking of a business where I could have a high ticket back end offer, you know, because technically speaking, all businesses are pretty much the same thing. It's just the economics of them are different, right? So when I would sell window cleaning, there's only so much money I could spend on marketing to scale. There's only so much wages I can give my technicians, even the very best ones that I want to be generous with. There's only so much meat on the bone. So when we started adding soft washing and roof cleaning and pressure cleaning to our mix, everything changed. Our technicians were making almost twice as much money. And it made it easier to hire, easier to retain people. It made it easier to do everything, right? So like if you can make your customer more valuable by having high ticket back end stuff, that's huge. I don't know exactly off the top of my head what that would be for carpet cleaning, but you know, maybe sort of, I know some people do restoration services. That can be a good business, but I don't like it because you can't proactively mark. People don't impulse buy that. That's just like a disaster happened and you're the guy at the top of the list, and so you get a bunch of money. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts about that.
Yeah, you mentioned pest control, and that's actually something that can be highly lucrative, just based like you said, on the ongoing revenue, right? So you have a monthly subscription service where you're coming out and spraying. It doesn't really take a lot of work outside of the initial visit, depending on what the issue is at the home. And that's something that private equity has actually jumped into, right? I mean,
well, private equity is everywhere now. And by the way, these are not good people. And I'm not saying don't take their money. Go ahead, take their money. But when you really understand how this whole thing works, it'll kind of make you sick to your stomach, because
absolutely,
the Main Street entrepreneurs doing all of the work, like everybody watching this, they get the most raw deal ever. Okay. And I don't know, I can kind of do a blue collar back of napkin explanation for you, but let's say you have $1 million business and you have 20% profit margins. That's after paying yourself a market rate salary. So that means there's $200,000 in profit. You know, typically it depends, but you could sell that for a multiple of 3 to 4. Okay. So what that means is that your business could be sold for $600,000 to $800,000. It could be more. It depends, but that's pretty normal. In fact, the most businesses sell for a multiple of like 2, right? Because they're just broken. They're smaller. But if you have a good, healthy business, so you might think, oh, that's cool. I got 600 grand. I sold my business. But what you don't understand is these PE companies, they're buying 10 companies like yours, all for a multiple of 3. Even if they don't grow them, they can flip it to a bigger PE company for a multiple of 10, let's say. And they keep all this money for not even adding real value to anything. This is kind of people's argument against private equity, is that they say they don't add real value. You know, when I sold my company, my cleaning company, to private equity, it was a sickening experience, because of what it did to the culture. Like, this was my baby. I cared about these people. We had breakfast stocked in the morning for all my staff. We had a ping pong table. The culture is insane. We had all these cool things we did. They just gutted all of it, reduced expenses, overly marketed to our customer base in a way that made them irritated with our brand, just to extract dollars so they could hurry up and flip it and just make a bunch of money. So it basically ruined the business to make even more money. But it doesn't stop with PE. This goes all the way to Wall Street. Like, if you looked up right now on Google what the PE ratio is of Tesla stock, last time I checked, it was around like 35 or 40, something like that. What that means is that for every dollar in profit that Tesla makes, the share is trading for $36 for that $1 in profit. So the local business owner is making a multiple of 3 when they exit their baby that maybe they worked for 15 years. Wall Street people, it's normal. Your grandma's, retirement account and IRA is invested in companies, and she's paying a 40 multiple to own stock in company. It's insane. And so the whole chain, from a multiple of 3 to 8 to 10 to 15 to 22 to 30, it goes all the way up the chain. And all the people getting rich are not the people on Main Street, not the people doing all the actual hard stuff. And that bothers me, and which is why I like to educate people on it. Because if you actually get better at your numbers, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. I didn't go to college. If you can wrap your head around your numbers, get better at marketing, and you can make millions of dollars with one of these types of businesses, even in a small market. You have like the earning potential of a professional athlete, and you don't act like it. Not you, but I'm saying you, like people in general. But you got to sharpen your sword. You got to level up your skills. It's not just going to happen to you. And the people kicking butt, they know things that you don't know. And so either learn them or don't, but don't complain about it, because all the information's out there.
Yep, that's a great point. And getting back to private equity again for a second, if you look at HVAC in particular, I mean, they've sort of devastated that industry in the sense that prices have gone through the roof. They've made it harder on in a marketing sense, because you go into a large metro like Las Vegas, for example, and it's all one big company that kind of dominates the scene. And they've, by default, sort of raised the price for AC units and stuff like that. And they made it harder for the mom and pop places, even the successful ones, or the bigger ones, to compete. And it's really tough to see. And the consumers are the ones that end up doing the heavy lifting, because they're paying more for a lot of these services now than they were just a few years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, that can be true, but I don't want it to sound like private equity is this unstoppable force, because there's two sides to every coin. You know,
Sure.
It's like when you have a little company, you want to look like you're huge. And when you have a huge company, you want to look like you're hometown friendly, right?
Right.
If you're marketing, it's not hard to market against these companies, you know, because they're not that smart. They're smart at spreadsheets and numbers and PE stuff, but they don't know people like an average small business owner does. So you just got to market louder. Most small business owners are broke. It's not complicated at all. They don't market. They don't talk about their stuff. They have no passion or enthusiasm. They're not shaking hands and kissing babies. They're not building the business. They simply answer the phone if it happens to ring, go do the work, and they're friendly, and they go home. And that's 95% of their time. You have to actually push the rock up the hill. It's freaking hard to build a business. Hello. Like, you're not going to accidentally have a $5 million company. And
Right.
people just have a misunderstanding of how much effort goes into this and how much stuff they need to know. You know, which is why I think, I don't know, maybe you can tell me if this is true, but like certain industries, like, what's a good one? Like the window tint industry, which most people don't even know that's an industry. It's a thing. People install window tint in homes and on businesses and stuff.
Cars.
Yeah. And that industry is not that sophisticated yet. And so if you go into their groups and their forums, 90% of the conversations are people arguing about technical stuff. Use this chemical, not that one. Oh, the PSI, the inverted flux capacitor, and this, and people have like this ego and this sense of pride that they know the inverted flux capacitor reverse outflux valve thing, and all of them are poor. They're all broke, and it's because that's what the stuff they're talking about, right? The pressure cleaning industry has evolved the last 10 years a lot. Okay, when I started working in that industry, it was just like that too. But it's different now. Now it's about personal development and mindset, more advanced financial stuff. You have 26-year-olds doing $500,000 a month pressure cleaning. It's not even that rare anymore. I mean, when my business had $100,000 a month, like 15 years ago almost, it was like amazing thing in our industry. It's not that rare now. You know, people are doing crazy stuff. A buddy of mine in New Jersey did $450,000 pressure cleaning last month with a 35% net profit in 1 month. That can happen. Wow. One of my business partners, Michael Kaplan, he grew a huge carpet cleaning business. I don't know if you know him, but they did $350,000 a week cleaning.
Wow.
Carpet. It took him 10 years to do it. He is a numbers marketer guy. That's what he is. And you'll start noticing Tommy Mello, these people doing big things, all of them have the same core competencies, which are sales and marketing and numbers. And if you want to argue about ball bearings and reverse flux capacitors, have at it. But that is like the problem on why you're struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. Something else I'd like to touch on for a minute is this kind of comes back to what you talked about, big company versus small company, and small company want to look big company want to look small. But the artist service and how much of a role that plays in the service industry. There's a lot of talk in the groups, kind of like when they get into the technical stuff. A lot of upstarts will talk about how they want a business that's turnkey. So basically, they want somebody to go online, book the job through the website, pay the price, basically no questions asked to an extent, right? And they come out and do the job, and that's it. And there seems to be a lot missing on the service side these days. And I don't know if it's a generational thing or what's happening, but engagement doesn't seem to be what it once was. You know, they rush people on the phone. They'll even talk about it. They rush to get people off the phone. If somebody even questions them on price, they'll hang up or get, all their nose out of joint. How much of a role is service lacking in the service industry right now? And how do you see that playing a role in growth and even just maintaining your business? I mean, engagement still matters, I guess is what I'm saying.
Customer service sucks nowadays, right? And right. I know I'm getting older because I keep saying things like that. These kids these days and their record players and their Walkmans, But the word service means a different thing to different demographics. So if you're talking to a 69-year-old homeowner, what they think service is totally different than a 32-year-old homeowner. So it depends on who your avatar is and who you're serving. So like a lot of older business owners, they're frustrated with the use of overly technologicalizing everything from the youngins, right? But you'll notice the young guys are making way more money than the old guys. like it's common that they grow faster, bigger, have more profit, because they're growing up in a world where there's all these unfair advantages. And maybe the guy that's been in business 20 years is kind of sort of been asleep at the wheel a little bit, and a lot of things have changed. Not that he's a bad person, I'm just saying. So this guy's on the forum being like, customer service needs to come back. Well, the young guy, see his frame of reference, he is doing customer service because the younger demographic wants speed. They don't want to talk on the phone. Like 25-year-olds get mad if you call them. They like if they text you, hey man, how you been? And you call them, they like there's whole viral videos about how cringe it is when you call someone that texts you, right? Well, the 69-year-old homeowner can't imagine a world where you would ever even want to text. They only want to talk, and they want to talk about the Michigan State Spartans and how their granddaughter just graduated. And they want to talk about their childhood school and how it used to be a schoolhouse and now it's this. So service is by and large lost. But I also think that service can be taking your time with the little old grandma that wants that. And it can also be speed and efficiency for the 30-year-old attorney that has a Ferrari lease that he can't afford, right? Like that guy thinks good service is speed, speed, speed. Don't talk to me, bill it, do it, make me look good. You know, it just depends. There's nuance.
Yep, that's a very, very good point. So here's the next question, a little bit of a curveball maybe. 5 tips for the startup or for the service person that's struggling. It seems to be 2 different ends where this problem lies right now, in my opinion. On one side, you have the startups that are struggling to get new business. On the other end, you have the veteran cleaners, just say cleaning, for example, where they didn't really keep up with the times. They don't have a CRM. They don't have a customer database. They've been working off of inbound calls, repeats, and referrals for the last 15 or 20 years or longer in some cases. And they just never got SEO. They never did any of that kind of stuff. So for these 2 ends, what are your 5 tips to get these people up and running and doing better than they are now?
It depends on what you want. Some people are what I call artisan business owners, and they like their small, simple, clean business. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a kind of a beautiful thing. Like there's nothing wrong with staying small. So I'll assume the way I answer your question, I'll assume someone wants to scale, make a lot more money, but not everybody does. And that's good. You know, I think who ends up losing is the homeowners, because the best service providers are artisan people, but no one knows they exist. You know, it's kind of like when you find a guy that can fix your car and it's like 10 times cheaper than taking it to the shop. Plus he does it even better. Like you want that guy for 25 years. I want to have a relationship with that guy. And so there's carpet cleaners that are that guy, and there's window cleaners that are that guy. The problem is it's hard for them to get ahead economically oftentimes. But if you do want to get ahead, there's a bunch of tips. Number 1, stop identifying yourself as a carpet cleaner. Identify yourself as an entrepreneur. Number 2, stop spending so much time talking to people that don't also want that same outcome. You don't have to be mean to them, but you have to stop giving people permission to speak into your life that don't already have what you want. I heard a quote that said, don't take advice from someone you wouldn't trade places with. And what happens is people are just talking shop with each other and no one's going anywhere. It's circular. There's nothing's happening, right? There's no one doing new things, no one thinking big, no one challenging misconceptions, like trying to break the mold, adjust the model, do something crazy. You want to be around people that are ahead of you. So talk to those people, right? So if you identify yourself as an entrepreneur, you change the people that you're around. And then the rest of the advice is really simple. You need to improve your business's FRAP, which is what I talked about at Capsalooza. FRAP is a very simple acronym for frequency, referrals, average ticket, and price. And the super fast version of it is you need to market louder and more often to your current customers so they buy your stuff more often. You need to do it yesterday. They need to do it more often. They want to. They forget. They're busy. So you got to like do it more often, because if you have a $600,000 business, I can turn it into a $1 million business without doing any marketing at all, only by adjusting FRAP. Okay. If I increase the frequency by 15%, then I increased the referrals by 15%, and not just referrals from your customers, but from referral channels, meaning the pressure cleaning company is sending you leads, and the restaurant down the street has some sort of introductory offer sitting on their front counter at their restaurant. You need strategic joint venture partnerships to just have more referral deal flow coming in. If that can go up, and then your average ticket, how do you get that to go up? Well, it's by cross-selling additional services, bundling things together. but getting good at it and sucking at it, but not stopping until you get good at it. And then boom, your average ticket goes up. And then raise your prices. You got to raise your prices yesterday, and don't raise them for what you even need them to be right now. Raise them for the 3 years in the future price from right now, and just let the chips fall. It's okay if people freak out and say they won't hire you. You need to level up your skills of selling against that and just get it over with, because then you can actually build a healthy business in the first place. Don't price your stuff based on your competitors. Don't price it based on what someone says on the internet. Look at your own costs. Make sure you're making a really fat margin on top of your own take-home paycheck, and just let the chips fall, because you're better off having a smaller boutique, really profitable business anyway than you are just having a bunch of revenue that you can't keep. It's like, what's the point of that? You know, it's like, would you rather have 1,000 customers and you get to make 50 grand a year? Or would you rather have 300 customers and you get to make 50 grand a year? Now, both scenarios are bad because you only make 50 grand a year, but I'll take the 300 customers where I make the 50 grand, right?
Yeah.
You got to raise your prices a lot. And people are like, I just raised my prices. You didn't do it enough. Do it more. It's got to make you uncomfortable, or it's probably not enough.
Got it. And for those that are wanting to get off the truck, right? So they have a one van operation. They have one maybe part-time employee, if any, and they really want to graduate. This is like something we hear a lot. They want to get to that second truck or third truck. What's your tip there? Because then you're beyond the 300 customers, right? You have to be. You have to be charging enough to support the growth.
Well, the reason they get stuck on the truck is because of what I just explained. This is literally why. I could stand before the Supreme Court and make my case. It's inarguable. Your pricing has to reflect the future version of your company. And most small owner operators aren't doing that. So they can't afford to scale and hire, because they're like, I do great. I make 20% profit. And when I look under the hood, I'm like, no, you don't. You make negative 5% profit. And they're like, no, I don't. I say, yes, you do, because you have no marketing spend in here. You have no health benefits allocated in here. You work out of your home. You didn't even allocate for a shop space. That's not in here. You didn't allocate for general managers or production managers. There's no sales commission built into your pricing. There's none of it. So, they say, you act your age when you're growing up. But with business, you can't act your age. You have to act older than yourself. You have to act like the at-scale version of your company. So a good exercise is to figure out, what would it actually cost if I was doing $2 million a year in sales? And you close your eyes, you kind of envision, I have a great storefront, I have modern equipment, I have cash in the bank, I have well-dressed, trained uniform technicians that are paid slightly above market rate. I have a really good ethical sales manager who makes a nice living. Maybe they don't get insane health benefits, but they get some stuff, a little 401k match. There's a paid vacation. Try to figure out what that costs and then walk it back to today. And we need to start charging those prices now. And then all of a sudden you can scale. I mean, literally you can, because you'll have money. You got to have money. People are so scared to charge more money, but what you're doing is you're just punishing yourself and your employees by not having the courage to charge more money. It's not about gouging people. Tommy Mello is one of the most generous people I've ever met. And he's a big personality, but if you know him kind of outside of that and talk to him, the guy's whole world revolves around helping his team get ahead. He's created dozens of millionaires at A1 that aren't him. Just people that had a job and have been riding it out with them, tons of them. And that makes him more excited than the money that he makes. Well, the reason he charges premium prices is so he can pay his garage door technicians $100,000 a year or whatever it is. To me, that's the ultimate act of generosity and compassion, is having the courage to charge higher price. See, most people act like, I'm not going to gouge my customers. But the truth is that you are scared to charge what needs to be charged so you can be generous to your own family and the employees that work for you. And it's this way to kind of die as a martyr, like, oh, I'm such a good person because I undercharge. You're not a good person. You're not helping anybody, not even yourself. So we got to put on our big boy pants and make some hard decisions, assuming you want to grow. I mean, everybody's allowed to do whatever they want.
Sure.
But, they act like people like Tommy are bad, or they're bad. There's a lot of haters that are like, that's just ridiculous. And the people hating, they're just cowards.
Wow. No, that's a great point. You spoke about vision a minute ago, and reverse engineering. I think those are two great points. I mean, seeing where you want to be, how do you get there, right? I don't think a lot of people necessarily do that. I don't do that, to be quite frank. And I think that's a great way to do that. How important is vision, and how important is it to reverse engineer? In other words, again, I can't emphasize this enough. You never really hear people talk about, like, where do I see myself in 5 years, but how do I get there, or how did I get there? Vision is part of conversation.
Vision is everything. I mean, every person I look up to has a massive vision that breaks my brain. I don't even like hanging out with people that don't have a vision. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll be cordial and stuff, but the Bible says, my people perish because of a lack of vision, right? And you don't have to love Jesus to see the truth in that little statement, okay? Because the vision is what pulls you into the future. See, a lot of people start their company because they're escaping something, not because they're running towards something. This is a big deal. So most people had a sucky boss. They hated their boss. They're like, I'm smarter than this guy. He's an idiot. I'm going to do it myself. And that's fine. And it is better to do it yourself than work for, Joe. Joe's stupid, right? Screw Joe. But there's no vision there. And so when you're running away from a bad job, your business gets stuck, right? Because you don't know what you're aiming at. And so we can get the golden handcuffs thing happening where we're okay. What's really interesting, Damon, is people that are online complaining about the economy, most of them, I'm talking 90+% of them, if I had to guess, they actually have enough money to survive. Okay, they're not going bankrupt. They're just suffering. And what does that mean? What it means is this: even a little tiny business with a small business with an inexperienced owner, they always figure out a way to solve the problem, because we all have what I call a panic number in our bank account. And when we hit this number, and the number is different for everybody. For Tommy, it might be 200 million. I don't know. But there's a number that when we get below that, we just solve the problem. For some people, it's $200. They hit $200. They're like, yeah, they make phone calls. They're knocking on doors. They do stuff. And now they're above the panic number. So with your company as a whole, when you're running away from something, all you're really doing, you're just kind of staying above this line you have in your head of like, I'm okay. I'm better off than I was. And it's not that you're a bad person for doing that, but you can't do something big unless you have a vision, and you got to be thinking about it all the time. You're chewing on it. You're talking about it with other people, not with anybody, but with other big vision people. And it gives you the courage to do scary big things. It's what compels you to learn new skills. I mean, why else would you, right? Unless you're building something.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, something else you mentioned a couple of minutes ago was when you looked at the numbers with some of your clients or people you're advising, you talk about, and you said the word commission in there. How much of a role does performance pay and commission play into a tech model, in your opinion, in your experience?
I think it's the only way to play. There's outlier scenarios. Like I had a guy I worked with in Canada, did pressure cleaning, and he found this like 70-year-old retired guy and hired him as a sales guy. And the guy was just kind of doing it for fun. And in year one, he sold $400,000 worth of pressure cleaning for this guy. He had no marketing, just this guy wandering around town selling pressure cleaning to strangers. And he paid him like this nominal commission. And so now whenever I answer this question, I have to say that, because technically you could hire some unicorn sales guy that works for $4,000 a month and just literally creates insane value. But that like never happens. Okay. That's the only story I've heard of that happening. So there's a couple tips for salespeople. Number one, I usually recommend people hire pairs of salespeople, not a single salesperson, for multiple reasons. If you're going to hire a salesperson, make sure you hire two at a time, because they need the competition, and one of them is going to churn out anyway, for sure. Okay. It's a high turnover job. The other thing is you want to realize that you're really bad at knowing how to lead and manage a salesperson. And so there's going to be tons of learning that will happen as you figure it out. And it's okay. And what'll happen is same thing happens when you hire a general manager or production manager or a CEO type position. You just don't know what you're looking for. You're going to suck at communicating, and people get discouraged. But you got to understand the value of cracking the code on this is gigantic, because if you get one or two really good, repeatable salespeople that say the right things. They have their schedule, the numbers and economics work. They like their job. They're getting paid fair. When that exists for you, you can almost do anything. Okay. It's like getting a golden ticket from Willy Wonka. You know, the value of having it exist correctly is so big. It doesn't matter how hard it is to get there, because once it's figured out, it's worth millions and millions and millions of dollars to you, period. So if you want to go big, you have to figure it out somehow. And not that having, you know, with carpet cleaning specifically, having in-person sales is a requirement, because I don't necessarily know if that's true or not. I know there's measurements and things, and you might be able to do a phone model with that too. But if you are going to do it, hire them in pairs. You know, don't get discouraged if they both leave the first 30 days. Keep doing it, iterate it, make sure the numbers, you know, math is the path. Like the math is really your boss. You think you have no boss, but you still do. Everybody's boss is math. That's all of our boss.
Yeah, good point. And were your techs performance pay that you had out in the field for you?
My techs were a hybrid of performance pay. And keep in mind, I sold my company over a decade ago. Mm-hmm. So it's been a minute. But even back then, yes, they were performance pay. Because we were seasonal in Michigan, we had like a 32-week season. We had a program for our technicians where they could get a smaller base pay all year round, and then the performance on top of it. Or they could get, you know, a bigger base pay during the 32 weeks and a performance on top of it, just like a school teacher does. In the state of Michigan, at least, teachers elect to either get year-round pay or 10 months worth of pay. And we tried everything under the sun. When I sold my company, that's what we had. It was a hybrid based on truck revenue and a bunch of other factors. But the main one was revenue. And I didn't pay my techs based on the profit margin, because they couldn't really control the profit margin. Our sales team and our man hour, that was handled over in the sales department. But the techs, it was all about a mix between their customer service ranking and their revenue mixed together, right? So if they had a high revenue with a lot of callbacks, that affected their commission. If they had high revenue with low callbacks, they got maximum commission. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's awesome.
So, because when you push technicians to just produce, the quality, the wheels fall off, right? So you have to have the revenue mixed with a quality metric of some kind, and you can turn that into a number lots of different ways. And it worked for us. I like that model.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Let's talk about WarPlan for a second. Basically, you developed a plan of a WarPlan, right, for businesses, and you have a small army of facilitators that are that have achieved great success in their own business, and now they're helping small business owners or business owners in general of multiple sizes scale and continue to grow and troubleshoot issues. And this reverse engineering for growth that you talked about earlier, is that part of the program, or what is WarPlan? I guess is the question.
WarPlan is a software platform that helps get your numbers really organized, and it helps you make a lot more money with your marketing. Mm-hmm. And I can actually even show it to you briefly. But what's actually makes WarPlan unique is that you can't really buy it from us. So 60 seconds of backstory. So when I started a coaching company called Automate, Grow, Sell years ago. And we had courses and workshops and trainings and stuff, and it was great, and people liked it, and it started to grow. But I noticed that approximately 12% of people that buy a course, even if it costs thousands of dollars, finish the course. About 12%. Those were my numbers, right? And we sold millions of dollars worth of courses. And I didn't like that. That made me feel a little sick to my stomach. So then I started doing live events where we do workshops with people, and we noticed about 50 to 60% of people would get a big result, because they'd actually implement, they'd laugh and cry together. We'd figure it out. Like, we'd sit at tables for 3 or 4 days and mastermind, and that worked better. Because of that, we ended up launching, I partnered with Brandon Vaughn years ago, and then we launched the Conquer program. You're familiar with that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So Conquer got even bigger results. But the problem with Conquer is that what I noticed was the bigger that it got, the worse it was for the little guy coming in. And not because someone did something bad. It's just being customer one of 800 businesses is not the same as being in a little cohort of 8 people that are just like you. right? It's just totally different. And so the gap was so big, the disconnect, people get overwhelmed. Plus Conquer has so much stuff it teaches that people just get, it's like drinking through a fire hose, and they get paralyzed and they don't take action sometimes. Lots of good people in it. It's changed a lot of people's lives. But what I'm doing with WarPlan is what we call decentralized coaching. Because if you just have, no one needs another software tool. Like, who wants a freaking another thing to log into and pay for? Like, nobody. But the biggest problem for the most people is they don't make enough profit, and they don't know their numbers, and they're really bad at marketing stuff. Like, they're just confused. So the only thing that WarPlan does is help with that stuff. Right? We're not teaching you how to build your employee handbook and how to systemize every part of your business. It's numbers and profit and marketing. That's it. But you don't do it alone, because I know you won't do it. So you do it in what's called a battle group with someone like you. So decentralized coaching would be like Eric Olson, for example, who's amazing human. I've known him for years. He doesn't have a $32 million business, but he has a really clean business, and he's really respected by a lot of people. And I don't know his exact revenue numbers right now, but let's say he does $1 million a year. You know how much value he has in his brain for someone doing 300,000 a year? It's like big, right? So if a small company worked with someone 2 chapters ahead of them, like Eric, for example, and they focused on numbers and profit and marketing and had fun, really, really big results happen. And so we built this software platform to solve that problem, if that makes sense, because coaching and community building and accountability is a huge deal. It's a big deal, but it needs to be small. We don't need any gurus. The world doesn't need gurus, you know, and the world doesn't just need software. We need community, we need more profit, and we need to do it, you know, with people like us. So that's what the platform is designed to do.
That's awesome.
Is that clear-ish?
Absolutely. No, it's very clear. And I've known Eric for a number of years. He's a very good friend of mine. He's a great guy. And you're right. He's built a rock solid business. And, you know, he's a great guy for the people that are still on the van, that want to get off the van, because like you said, he's 2 chapters ahead, but not 4 or 5 chapters ahead, or at volume 2 or what have you. So it absolutely makes sense. I think that's a great summary of WarPlan. Does part of that include that engineering of the numbers, or that of the numbers like you talked about?
Did this work when I click share?
Yep. Give me one moment. There we go.
So basically, you know, all service companies have what we call a revenue curve. It depends on what part of the country they're in, what services they provide. But, you know, there's seasonality or some sort of ebb and flow. It just depends. I don't know if people around Thanksgiving all get their carpet cleaned, but it starts with us putting in your financials, okay? And so that we can figure out all the really confusing math stuff for you, right? So when you come in here and you put this, it figures out your revenue curve. Then what you do is you build what's called a battle plan, okay? And this is where you set a goal, right? So you're like, okay, I'm doing 600,000 in revenue now. I want to do 1 million. My customer value is this much, you know, and you fill out all these things. And then what our system does is it reverse engineers everything. So to close your gap each week, you can come in here and it like knows how much of each type of thing you need to do to get enough leads to close your gap, whatever it is, right? And you create these marketing levers. And like I said, you're doing it in a group, maybe with someone like Eric or whatever, and you do it. I mean, it has way more functionality than just that. You can track your competitors in here, which is totally insane.
That's awesome.
You can actually send those acquisition letters I was talking about through here automatically. So if I wanted to send, you know, this guy an acquisition letter, I can click this, pick which letter template I like. I could even make it send it once a month, and it will just automatically send it to them. And it's just a simple letter being like, hey, you know, we work in the same town. I have an abundance mindset, you know, like it's okay that we're competitors. If you're ever thinking about selling, I'd love to be the first person you call, right?
And that's got to be a great way to make that approach too, right? Versus a phone call where they might consider kind of hostile, or, you know what I mean, or put off. They get a letter. It's definitely less intrusive and less off-putting.
Yeah, you can also do SEO reports on them to see kind of where they're beating you.
That's
You can do
cool.
SEO reports for yourself just because a lot of SEO companies are full of crap and it's a way to hold them accountable. You
Sure.
can put your employees in here. You can send birthday gifts to them. You can do all these weird things. And then with our battle bots, you can connect like your social media to this, and it will post all your social media content for you on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. You can reply to your Google reviews from like inside of our software without even logging into Google. It does a lot of things. It also tracks how much you could sell your company for.
Wow.
Based on your industry and different multiples. And, you know, it tracks as it goes up. It does a lot of stuff, tons and tons and tons of things. There's a chat bot you can install on your website. It'll get you leads, talk to your customers, text you, turn it into a lead. There's all these things. And there's also money missions, which are trainings on how to improve your business's FRAP, you know, the frequency of the referral. How do you make money just with your brain before you spend money on marketing? Because people waste lots of money on marketing, but their business isn't frappy yet. Like they're not getting maximum frequency and getting most of the referrals they could get. Their average ticket's not big enough and their pricing isn't set correctly. Do that first, then you turn on ads and everything's totally different. Plus the whole thing is gamified. It's like a video game. So they unlock badges and stuff as they use it and all that. And it's really,
what a phenomenal platform. This is amazing.
Yeah, it does a lot of cool stuff. And really, because Conquer got so big and it's so successful, this is like a simpler way to get a bigger result faster. Because for a little business, if they actually improve their profit, that can happen in weeks, by the way, like a couple weeks. Like you adjust your pricing, you put together a new package bundle, you do a Rainmaker email campaign to past customers. You probably don't email them enough. You do it the right way and you can make 10, 20, 30 grand sometimes off of one of these campaigns. And now your pricing is getting adjusted, right? You create a money lever. It starts to empower you and you're doing it in a little group with other people just like you, but a little bit ahead. Mm-hmm. That is just a really good mixture of stuff. So we basically sell our platform to people that want to be a mentor to other people who are behind them. And doesn't mean they think they're a guru. The world doesn't need more Grant Cardones running around. It just needs good people that want to help other people. And that's our model, right? And so it's really
what a great tool. Yeah, that's very impressive. I mean, that's phenomenal. A friend of mine, Robert Eisenstadt, I think, I'm sure you know, he's in the WarPlan program. And I believe he's doing quite well with it, actually. So,
yep,
that's great.
All of them are learning because people like Rob, I mean, what a wicked smart guy, incredibly accomplished. But someone like him, he has so much value to provide people, but he doesn't want to run out on the internet and be like, I'm amazing, I'm a know-it-all guru. We don't need that. We need community, you know? Mm-hmm. There's so much negativity in some of these groups, and, you know, we just need to get our numbers cleaned up, do a little bit more clever marketing, and be consistent, and your whole world can change. And it's not a small thing. You know, marriages are saved because you get your numbers correct. Literally.
Right.
I'm not being melodramatic at all. I have letters from people because financial stress is so crippling. It's like you're suffocating. Zig Ziglar said, money isn't everything, but it's the only thing you can think about when you don't have enough of it. Or no, actually, I messed up the quote. He said, money isn't everything, but it's similar to air. When you don't have enough of it, it's the only thing you can think about, right?
Oh, yeah. Got it. That's hilarious.
That's like 80% of business owners are just freaked out, and they need to get their revenue curve figured out. They need to make some marketing levers. They need to get in a community of people that actually want to grow instead of arguing about inverted flux capacitors, whatever the carpet cleaning version of that is. I know you know what I'm talking about, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah, all day long. I mean, I'm immersed in Facebook. I mean, it's a big part of my business, and you know, it's all about the technical part. It's all about, you know, what wand you're using, what van do you drive, and unfortunately, not enough about how are you executing. That was the last thing I was going to bring up with you. Execution, right? I mean, you could talk to a lot of cleaners until they're blue in the face, or anybody with a small business, and give them the plan, give them the path, give them the ideas, give them the tools. But for some reason, it's difficult for the rubber to hit the road. And where is that? Is it just a time management issue? I mean, is it fear? Because they'll pay money to get the information, or they'll deep dive and do tons of research, but when it comes to actually doing it, it just doesn't always happen. More times than not, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. It usually doesn't happen. There's a reason that wealth accumulates in the hands of a few. And like it or not, in my opinion, it's all identity stuff. And we kind of settle in at whatever level of success we feel we deserve. And we kind of sit there. And what'll happen is they'll get motivated and start making some positive improvements. And then people self-sabotage, lots of different ways they do that. I've also noticed there's at least the same amount of people that fear success as there is of people that fear failure. I think people say it's fear of failure. A lot of times it's fear of success, because even if you've had a little success in your business, you'll notice that like your family will be weird sometime. I mean, I'm not worth, $1 billion, but I've done very well. And we've made a lot of money compared to most people, right? And it changes relationships. It can get weird, and my wife and I, our heart is for families, for orphans. We like to support orphanages. I want to raise my 5 kids to be world changers and just pour into them. And people don't know your heart. And sometimes when you actually start succeeding, it makes things weird with people around you. So there's lots of extraneous weird things that are happening in our brain to sabotage our success. For most people, they need to become a little bit dumber to be able to succeed more, because people are perpetual overthinkers. And most people actually already know what to do. They just don't do it. They don't have an information problem. They have an implementation problem, right? For me, I've struggled with my weight basically my whole adult life. I go up and down, up and down. I'm kind of middle right now. I've been even much bigger than I am now, and I've been thinner. It's an identity thing. I'm not confused about eating birthday cake for breakfast. Like, I do know that that's not the right way to do it, but I still eat the birthday cake for breakfast,
Yeah,
so
feels good, tastes good.
The same thing happens for businesses, for our bank accounts, with our panic number, is we settle in to where we think we deserve to be. And then we try to make sense of it. That's why having a vision for your life that's big, that makes you uncomfortable, is step one. And then getting around people that also have a vision, that's how you begin the process of kind of, could I be maybe at this next level? I don't know. I don't feel worthy, but could I be? Right. And that's how you begin that progression, because I don't know if you've noticed too, a lot of people are like a big fish in a small pond. Maybe they do pretty good for a carpet cleaner, and they get enough satisfaction out of just looking cool to the people behind them that they just stay at that level, right? I don't want to do that. For me personally, I want to keep being uncomfortably small in each new pond they go into, right? Because there's just more. There's more out there. It's not about money. It's about growth. I think everything God made, he made to expand and grow. And humans are like apple trees with attitudes. We're like an apple tree, except we don't decide to make the apples. We're like, I don't want to. I don't feel like it. Imagine an apple tree that's like every apple tree in the world produces 100% of the apples that it could make based on the soil and where it's planted. And, you might have a tree that produces 3 apples and it croaks. That tree did 100% of what it could, and then humans are like these apple trees, but we're like, I don't want to. My dad was mean to me. Or, we make all these things and we just don't make apples. It's like, we're capable of a lot more. And small business is about a lot more than money. It's the people we mentor, the jobs we create, the impact on the community, and the impact on ourselves and what we're capable of.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. What's next for Josh Latimer?
Next for us is getting noisy about WarPlan AI. I've been building it for 2 years. It's cost lots of time and money and pain and suffering and effort. We have about 65 facilitators right now, kind of quietly, that we've kind of got together, and it's new. And then we're going to start getting noisy. And some people are not going to like the fact that we're getting noisy, because it's a very disruptive model. The idea that everyone could be a mentor instead of only the town elder anointed gurus are only allowed to be a mentor is very compelling. I think it's good. but some of the guru people won't like it at all. So that'll be interesting. That'll be the next phase, just continuing to develop the product, helping our facilitators become successful, because they also make good money doing this and helping people, and just figuring that out and seeing what happens.
Absolutely. I encourage everybody to check out WarPlan AI. Josh, thank you so much for your time. What a great conversation this was. And hopefully we'll be seeing you at the next Capalooza. You made a big splash this year, and love to see you there next year.
Thanks, man. Damon, I really appreciate your time, especially the day after the 4th on a Friday night. Much appreciated, my friend.
No, thank you. We'll talk soon.